Hey, Foot Clan, before we start today's show, want to remind you about Fantasy Champs, the absolute best place to get that fantasy championship hardware. Trust me, you've never seen something displayed so beautifully like their rings and their cases. And right now they are doing a promotion that ends tonight, so you got to get in on it. You give them a follow on Twitter at MyFantasyChamps, and you retweet the contest. That's all you have to do at MyFantasyChamps. And, of course, you find all of their stuff over at FantasyChamps.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Redraft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome into the show.
Doing whatever I want.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Your new host, Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright. That is me.
You're looking good, Mike.
You're looking good as well.
Thank you.
Jason Moore.
Jay Grizz in the house.
Jay Grizz in the house.
Looking fine as well.
Andy Holloway and his lovely family, they are taking a well-deserved vacation.
Yeah, they saw what happened to Todd Gurley this week. They go, I gotta go.
You had to hightail it out?
I'm not going to be here for this. I'm only here for the good Gurley. I don't want to hear these two guys gloat. So He left. He went to Disneyland.
So like I said, my name is Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright. Jason Moore. You can follow the show on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Jason is at JasonFFL. I am at FF Hitman. And the missing Andy Holloway, our fearless leader. You can find him on Twitter at Andy Holloway. Man, it's going to be a great show.
It's going to be a wild and out show. What? There is no limit.
We're going to Nick Cannon wild out.
There's no limit. This could be 5 hours. It could be 7 hours.
You don't know.
I mean, you probably know because you started the podcast by now, and it probably said how long it was, but we don't know.
That's not very fair. No. They live in the future. So today we'll do the Fantasy Rewind. A lot of news, a lot to
recap from this weekend.
A lot of sad news.
Yeah, there were plenty of injuries to go around.
But there's also positivity. We'll talk the Stud Muffins, our Raising Cane's rising stars. Got to always talk the poopers. When you talk the ups, you got to talk the downs. But we're going to get into the quick question. Which underperforming player or players are you targeting in trades? It's the end of week 5. I mean, people are making the push for the playoffs right now. You are getting ready. So, Jason, who are you targeting?
I've got a decent-sized list of players that I would be targeting, and it always comes down to
give me your third favorite.
My third favorite player to target would actually be DeMarco Murray.
Okay.
He would be my third favorite. I know a lot of people have to be freaking out about DeMarco Murray, and no one –
I am one of them.
Yeah, no one is freaking out more than whoever owns DeMarco Murray, which is what allows you to buy a player low. Their owners are done with him. The DeMarco Murray owners, they probably don't have a great record because they have been relying on him. They've been starting him, and he's been letting them down week after week after week. So you say, well, Jason, why would you possibly want to buy into that and bring that landmine onto your team? It's because I don't believe he is a landmine. I think he looked all right. He ran for over 4 yards a carry. He had 14 carries this last week compared to Derrick Henry's 4. And, of course, he didn't produce much. They didn't have a quarterback. I mean, Marcus Mariota was gone, and I think that was a big part of the problem. I mean, I know the Dolphins aren't great, but that's one guy. But when I say I've got a list of guys, it's all about the price. I mean,
sure.
I'm not going to be trading for Isaiah Crowell because I don't believe he's ever going to get it done. But the guys like
teams are actually willing to pay you money to take Isaiah Crowell.
I will give you a second-round pick in next year's draft if you take Isaiah Crowell and start him. Like if you take him and start him, I'll give you a second-round pick. Who are you targeting, Mike?
I mean, DeMarco Murray, it's an okay one. The nice thing for Murray is that Henry's doing nothing. Henry is underperforming as well. The guy I'll target, it's Jay Ajayi. I know I have voiced my concerns about him. I'm still concerned about him. But 25 carries for running back, that doesn't fall off of trees. 25 carries. And similar to the Murray owner, the Jay owner, you know they're freaking out right now.
Yeah, some of these guys, a perfect example. Amari Cooper,
oh my goodness.
There's going to be leagues where you can find him on the waivers, but you're going to be able to trade for Amari Cooper as cheap as possible. I told people last week I traded for Amari Cooper this past week. I sat him. You don't want anything to do with Cooper right now, especially while Derek Carr is gone, but he's going to come back. His last 3 games were against 3 of the best defenses out there. So if you can get him pennies on the dollar, he's another candidate that I wouldn't shy away from. I would not start him until Derek Carr's back. Amir Abdullah is a guy that after this down week against a very difficult Carolina backfield, but again, you talked about the carries that Jay Ajayi is getting. Amir Abdullah is getting the work, and he's getting it done. So I would be willing to take him on if I can get him affordable. Probably my 2 favorite, though. You said my 3rd favorite, so I skipped down to DeMarco.
Oh.
My 2 favorite guys are guys that I actually believe in. I think they've looked good. I think they will perform well the rest of the year, and they both had slightly down weeks. My number 1 would be Keenan Allen.
Love it.
Keenan Allen has been targeted, top 10 in the league. His hands are usually great. This last week he had a couple drops that made his stat line down a bit, but he is very important to that offense. I like everything I've seen out of him. And Alshon Jeffrey, no one expected him to have this monster big blow-up game against Patrick Peterson. But Carson Wentz is the real deal.
Yes.
He looks great. I trust him, and I would definitely be looking to trade for Alshon and Keenan Allen.
All right, let's get into the rewind.
Weekly Rewind.
The big news of the weekend, Odell Beckham, broken fibula, will need surgery. It was horrifying to watch. You knew from I knew watching that first replay, I said to Jason, I'm like, that's broken. It's just the way his leg twisted. You knew it was really bad. You could tell by his reaction. Beckham's been giving us a little bit of that shady action lately where he'll go down writhing. You're like, I think he's okay. But this one was different. And
right off the bat, I thought, oh, another play acting. And then they showed the replay, and you're like, oh, his foot turned the wrong way. That's going to be broken. It's no good. And so a lot of people are asking, okay, what do I do
now? And I was all ready to talk about my number 1 target for Odell Beckham replacement is Keenan Allen. I love because he was on a down week. It's not like trying to buy Antonio Brown, which is nearly impossible, or A.J. Green. Those guys are – sure, if you can do that, absolutely pick them up, but the price of those guys is going to be astronomical. Meanwhile, you may be able to get Keenan Allen for an okay price.
Right.
And not just devastate your team, rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
Exactly. No, that's why Keenan Allen's a very good replacement. The questions become, what about the other weapons there? All of them went down.
For the Giants?
The 4 wide receivers, their 4 starting wide receivers went down, all with ankle or foot injuries. Dwayne Harris out for the year, and then you have the 2, Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard, both injured their ankles before Odell Beckham. They are considered right now week to week. Sterling Shepard's going to be getting an MRI, I believe, today. I had questions on Twitter that were, okay, how much does this bump up? Let's say Sterling Shepard is back this week. Brandon Marshall, Odell Beckham are out. I think Sterling Shepard is a talented receiver, and I'm staying as far away from every New York Giant right now as humanly possible. I don't trust Eli Manning without Odell Beckham, let alone without Odell Beckham, possibly without Sterling Shepard, without Brandon Marshall. Their upcoming schedule this week, they're going and playing the Denver Broncos.
It's not optimal.
I would say the most difficult matchup for wide receivers in the entire league. They're following that up with the Seattle Seahawks. If you're depleted, your offense is bad, you're already 0-5, you're going up against 2 of the more difficult matchups in the NFL. I am avoiding completely.
The Giants news continues as Orleans Darkwa, who was looking pretty nice. He has a couple great runs. He had a great touchdown run. He was knocked out with a calf injury. Wayne Gallman looked competent in replacement. I believe he had 5 receptions, so at least he's catching the ball. Wayne Gallman is going to be a hot property.
Yeah,
when it comes to the waiver wire this weekend.
It's rare to find a running back who can start But again, I go back to the fact that if they are depleted on offense and they've got this crazy difficult schedule, that, I mean, someone on the Giants will have fantasy production. It will probably come from the running back who is catching the ball, which usually you think of Shane Marine in that role. I think now the Gallman news is like, okay, so is it going to be Gallman? Is Vereen going to be healthy? It's just so murky. Again, I would let someone else deal with that issue.
Sure. DeVante Parker left the game with an ankle injury. He also left the stadium on crutches. It is a sprained ankle. Charles Clay was carted off with a knee injury. That one looked pretty bad. So Mr. Necessary is off the field, it would seem.
Which means
we have a Mr. Very Necessary.
Yes.
Nick O'Leary, the replacement tight end, came in, was immediately getting targets. So he will also be hot property on the waiver wire. Jordy Nelson dealing with a hamstring issue. If you were watching that the Dallas Green Bay game with the Packers, incredible comeback. Aaron Rodgers does it again. He did it without Jordy Nelson on the field.
Yeah, everyone's screaming, why is Jordy? He didn't look right the whole game.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you'll need to monitor practice this week.
So Matt Stafford, he was hobbling all day, says he'll be all right. We have Travis Kelce, suffered a concussion. Chris Conley with the Achilles injury. And for the Texans, J.J. Watt and Merciless. J.J. Watt he's done.
Yes.
This is a broken leg situation. If I've researched a little bit about what the break was, and you go, holy crap, that sounds horrifying.
Yeah, some people are mentioning that other players have had the same injury before, been out a couple of weeks. I believe Des Bryant had that. But from my understanding, same injury on paper, very different injury in reality. There's much more the severity to J.J. Watt is much different, and he should be done for the year. This is bad news for the Texans' defense, which – from a fantasy football perspective, could be decent news for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson's probably going to end up in the stud muffin section.
You think?
Let's find out.
You're bold.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
Your current number one scoring quarterback of the week, Deshaun Watson, 5 touchdowns on only 16 completions.
Wow.
If these trends continue, I mean, it was an outrageous night for Watson. He struggled for most of this game, and then
the garbage man can.
Which, to be fair, the bomb to Fuller and Hopkins. I mean, he's still trying to bring the team back, but then to end the game with a touchdown to Hopkins, it's just delightful for fantasy owners.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson has been a revelation.
Yeah, but we got to talk. This is a moving forward. What are you doing with Deshaun Watson, who has been just unbelievable? I mean, he has gone nuclear the past 3 weeks.
What you do with Deshaun Watson, to me, the decision as to, okay, what am I supposed to do if I've got him, is very, very easy and obvious. Look, he's been as hot as you could possibly get. Here's how hot he is. We're 5 weeks in. He is 4 points behind the number one quarterback on the season, Alex Smith, who's also been, just touchdowns galore. Except Deshaun Watson didn't start week 1. He's for all intents and purposes, almost a whole game behind, and he is virtually the number one quarterback in the league. So if you've got him, you start him, you stay in those flames, and if I have him, I'm trading him or fielding offers to trade him to every team imaginable.
He's got the Browns coming up.
Great.
Do you want to hold him for one more week
No.
and then his bye week?
No, I'm not holding him for one more week. So it's bye week after the Browns?
Yes.
That means if you hold him for the Browns, now you're going to have a really hard time trading him after that.
Maybe.
But you're not going to have him. No, I mean, trading for a guy on bye, you never, ever get the value when you're trading a player on bye. The person buying him expects a discount. I don't think there's anywhere for Deshaun Watson to go but down. And that's not to say he hasn't proved valuable.
You don't think he can just go linear?
I don't think he can go linear with 5 touchdowns a game. I think that would break the world and the NFL history books. And this isn't taking anything away from Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback or that he's going to fall to the 20s. He'll be a startable asset the rest of the year because of his baseline with his rushing and his propensity to get it done near the goal line. But you have a guy that in a league, you should be able to trade him to someone who believes that he is the newest revelation in the NFL and get a good wide receiver or a good running back for him, and you'll be able to replace his value, I think, much easier than you could possibly replace a starting wide receiver or running back.
Dak Prescott had a fantastic game as expected. Unfortunately, he goes on to the bye week, but he is an absolute hold. There's a lot of these quarterbacks, if you're streaming, you say bye week, goodbye, hit the bricks. Do not drop Dak Prescott. Carson Wentz dominated the Arizona Cardinals, 21 of 30 for over 300 yards. He was absolutely fantastic. And here's where we eat crow. Cam Newton.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Another monster game against the Detroit Lions, who were, statistically, they were an okay defense, but they were causing turnovers. They were creating havoc. Cam Newton comes in, drops over 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. He absolutely dominated them.
Yeah, he did it in the passing game. It wasn't like he had I think he had 0 rushing yards.
0? Really? Okay, well, we got to vet that.
Yeah, I rechecked that a number of times because I was surprised.
Because you were surprised, yeah.
All the attempts, yeah.
Right. So, this is good news. I think Cam Newton is a guy. He's done it before. I called.
So are you in?
Yeah, I would say
Cam Newton back.
Yeah, I would say I'm in. If you had the shoulder surgery, you come back, you look bad, you're slow to recover, and then the last 2 weeks, you've gotten it done, and you've gotten it done with some of the newer weapons. Devin Funchess has stepped up into that third year.
Yes, he has.
Leap as a wide receiver. You've got Christian McCaffrey, who's padding. He hasn't had a running back to pad his passing stats the way that Matthew Stafford has always had and the way that Drew Brees has always had. Now, if Christian McCaffrey is getting 50, 60 yards through the air, those are Cam Newton's numbers. So, yeah, I'll happily eat crow on Cam Newton here, although he is not. Cam Newton is not my number one waiter for crow being delivering. I have a big pile when we get to the poopy section.
All right, we'll get there. So please don't talk about waiters in a poopy section.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Alex Smith continues his domination. Every week start.
Yeah, has to be right now.
This is a different Alex Smith. And Brian Hoyer had himself a game.
Hey, there you go, my stream of the week.
The matchup was great against the Colts. Moving over to the running back position, Melvin Gordon had a sensational game, 20 carries, over 100 yards. It's all systems go.
Yeah, it is for me. I know you and I disagree. When we sit here on the couch watching, and you just don't believe in Melvin Gordon. And I absolutely love Melvin Gordon. So that gave me great joy to look at you with menacing eyes.
Yes, I received it. I received the glare many, many times.
But my favorite running back in the league right now, absolutely to watch. There's nobody I would rather watch. Another definite stud muffin, Leonard Fournette. Whew. He's the new AP. He's bringing on the hits. He's got this play where he's
if you've not seen this play, you need to look it up immediately. But Leonard Fournette breaks a tackle. He's right, so he has wheeled out to the edge. He caught the edge. There is a defender coming, and he knows that I'm going to hit this guy. He waves the defender at him.
Yeah, full Matrix style.
And says, exactly. He went Morpheus. He says, bring it on. And then proceeds to run into him. He didn't stay on his feet, unfortunately. If he had blown him up and ran, it would have been great. One of the best plays of all time. But it's just the fact that he is inviting contact mid-play.
He's done it. He did it in high school. He did it in college. Beast. He is a generational talent, and I think Leonard Fournette. Here's a good question: Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette. I've seen a lot of this question being asked.
Like rest of season?
Who would you rather have, Leonard Fournette or Melvin Gordon in fantasy?
That's tough because Melvin Gordon is so involved in the passing game.
Yeah, if you're in any kind of PPR, half point or full point, I think you've got to go Melvin Gordon. He had 6 receptions this last week. Both of his touchdowns came in the passing game. So I would still lean Gordon. But if I'm in a standard league and I'm not getting anything for the receptions, just total yards.
You rather have Fournette?
I think I'd go Fournette.
Aaron Jones had a monster game. in replacement starting for Green Bay, but we're going to talk about him a little bit later. Buck Allen. Talk about a Mr. Necessary. Terrence West goes out immediately at the beginning of the Ravens versus Raiders, and Buck Allen comes in, and he's getting all the carries.
He got everything near the goal line. I mean, Alex Collins was in and was involved and looked, all right. About as good as Buck Allen, who looked all right.
Right.
But when you get 21 carries, and he's the guy they trust to not fumble near the goal line, that's why you as soon as you got inside the 20s, you never saw Alex Collins. It was the Buck Allen show.
Yeah,
and
not the most efficient day, but great fantasy numbers.
Absolutely.
And that's what we care
you get
about.
21 carries and you get a touchdown. You catch four balls. I think Buck Allen's one of those guys where if Terrence West is injured this week and he's out, he's all systems go.
Duke Johnson had another great game on very limited touches. Marlon Mack.
Yeah, we'll talk about him here in a little bit too. 9 for 91 and a touchdown. Looked terrific.
And somehow this player, on our Thursday recap, we got too caught up in the Nick Folk talk. And we didn't even really talk about Doug Martin after the game, which is surprising given that Andy's just true affection.
He's one of Andy's 3 my guys.
I mean, Doug Martin has a very special place in Andy's heart, and he came through in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, only got 13 carries, turned that into 74 yards and a touchdown.
In a
touchdown. I mean, Doug Martin, he is a great running back. He's on a team that needs to run the ball, that wants that to be their identity, and he's an absolute weekly must start, and he's going to finish from here on out.
Where do you have? Yeah,
from here on out, he'll be a top 10 running back for
top
sure.
10.
Yeah. Easily.
Woo!
Easily.
That's fine. I was going to say running back too, but I think a lot of it has to do with the landscape. We did get the old rope-a-dope when Jacquizz Rodgers was out there to start the game, and you go, oh, crap.
And yeah, beforehand, Andy was saying, he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Jacquizz come out and start this game. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. But I'll be shocked if at the end of the game it's an even carry number, and it was not. Jacquizz came out, got those first few carries, finished with 3 carries.
Before we move on to the wide receiver studs of the week, I want to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring the show. We talk about them all the time because they are the best sports memorabilia place of all time in existence. And whenever we talk about them on the show, I always log in because they have new stuff every single day to peruse. Jason, they have a signed full-size Kareem Hunt helmet, except that it's not the standard white. This is a gold chrome helmet. This thing is
outstanding.
This unbelievable fire. It's taking everything in me right now to just be like we are engaging in a full bidding war. But they have other things like a full-size Deshaun Watson signed helmet. I mean, this is where we get all of our jerseys. The signatures are always guaranteed to be authentic. That's what you care about, right? Did that guy actually sign it?
Yes.
And they say yes, he did, because they use the best authenticators around, and just Foot Clan. If you haven't done so, you got to jump on Pristine Auction, Pristine auction.com. The account process, it's completely free. When you make it, let them know that the Fantasy Footballers sent you.
Yeah, you won't be disappointed.
Yes.
Also, definitely want to thank ZipRecruiter, longtime sponsor of the Fantasy Footballers, and a great service to use if you are hiring. We come from a different business. We work together. I would always say hiring is the most important thing you can do. Your business is going to succeed or it's going to fail based on the quality of the people you have working there. I think that's true of literally every business that exists. And to find the right candidate isn't always easy. You got to go to hundreds of different places. ZipRecruiter does that all for you. Post your job to 100+ different job sites with one click. Their technology matches the right people to your job posting. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within 1 day. So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to get the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/footballers to try it for free. That's right, ZipRecruiter.com/footballers. One more time, ZipRecruiter.com/footballers.
All right, let's talk some stud muffin wide receivers. A.J. Green, ho-hum, 7 receptions for 189 and a touchdown. I think this is a sigh of relief for people who drafted A.J. Green. Andy Dalton, it was a rough start to the year. It seems like they have gotten things figured out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with A.J. Green has always been even though he is up in that 90 to 100 reception, he's always near the top. He's never been a super consistent fantasy guy. He's not like the Antonio Browns where, 75% of the time you're getting a great week. But his games are so blow up huge. He's the type that can win you a week. This is that type of week. I mean, he finishes as the #1 wide receiver. When you go for almost 200 yards and a touchdown, you're going to get this. But it was nice to come against a good defense in Buffalo. His upcoming schedule, he's going to go to the bye. And then Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. I mean, not much to say about A.J. Green. He good.
I'm going to mention a wide receiver here. He was drafted in the first round.
Of fantasy or
NFL.
Okay.
So first round draft pedigree. Blazing fast.
Okay.
Hands have been a little questionable throughout his career. This player is on pace for 32 touchdowns.
Is this player Will Fuller?
Yes, Will Fuller on a 16-game pace. He will be scoring 32 touchdowns.
Take that, Randy Moss.
Deuce for Will Fuller. Two in his first game, 2 this week on
3 targets.
2 receptions for 2 touchdowns.
So what do you do with Will Fuller?
Because this is an outlier, right?
Yes, I mean, I think it is.
It's an outlier, but what do you do moving forward with Will Fuller? Deshaun Watson's throwing a bunch of touchdowns. He likes to go deep. Will Fuller, that's his bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, you pick him up, and you know now that he is the wide receiver 2 for the Houston Texans. And if you believe Deshaun Watson is going to stay as, let's just call him a top 10 quarterback for fantasy the rest of the way, if you look at other top 10 quarterbacks, they produce a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 usually. I mean, a serviceable, startable type of players, almost everybody. I mean, the thing is you don't always know. Take Phillip Rivers. You don't always know who's the number 2 this week. Is it Tyrell Williams? Is it Travis Benjamin? Is it going to be Dontrell Inman? Is it going to be the Goose, Henry? Who's the second target? But it looks like you know who the second target's going to be in Houston. It's going to be Will Fuller. So I think you pick him up, and I think you take your gamble type of shots at starting him. I mean, look, I don't love starting a guy who's getting 3 targets. I hate that. That sounds terrible. But to have the wide receiver 2 on a team that looks like they're going to be able to put up points,
and they're going to have to.
Right,
with the loss on the defensive line.
Yeah, so I would say pick him up and use him as a flex start.
His teammate DeAndre Hopkins had himself a solid game on the back of 3 touchdowns. Devontae Adams, great game. T.Y. Hilton finally came through in a big way, 7 for 177 yards.
This is 2 out of the last 3 weeks. I mean, if he's got a beatable matchup, Brissett is good enough to utilize his talents.
And he gets the Titans next week. So this is T.Y. Hilton he's staying in your lineup.
Absolutely. He's staying in, and Andrew Luck probably still several weeks away, but he is practicing. And
who knows
with
coming. Andrew Luck?
He's coming.
Is he?
Yeah. Did you know that Antonio Brown had more targets in that game against Jacksonville than Blake Bortles, the quarterback on the other side of the ball, had attempts? Blake Bortles did not throw the ball as many times as Antonio Brown was targeted.
Well, here's what makes sense is that Jacksonville is the best defense against the pass and the worst against the run. So, of course, you're going to give Antonio Brown 19 targets.
Squeaky wheel, man.
I mean, their game plan was I don't know what Pittsburgh was doing, and they lost, I think, because of that. How do you not ride out Le'Veon Bell against the Jaguars? It's absolutely ridiculous. But Antonio Brown had a great day. Odell Beckham, before the injury, had a great game. And this is a guy I want to talk about here. because I mentioned Keenan Allen as a great Odell Beckham replacement trade target. Chris Hogan is playing fantastic. It was before the season started. You had Edelman's injury, and it was, well, who's going to pick up the slack? I mean, they paid a first-round draft pick to get Brandon Cooks on the team, so it was, I mean, that the signs pointed to that. Meanwhile, Chris Hogan is being an absolute stud, and I don't know if the perceived value of Chris Hogan matches what his actual real-life fantasy value is. I mean, the team who has Chris Hogan, they probably know, but that's another door that I would open up, give a little knock, say, hey, can I get Chris Hogan?
Right. If you've got, Amari Cooper, can you turn Amari Cooper into Chris Hogan?
That would be like, that's a heist movie.
Because
that's the plot of a heist movie. That's Ocean's 14.
Yeah, that's trading.
You've traded Amari Cooper for Chris Hogan right now.
I think you'd do it in a heartbeat. Chris Hogan has, since week one, complete dud. 1 reception for 8 yards, wasn't involved. Since then, 78 yards, 68 yards, 60 yards, 74 yards, while accumulating a touchdown in every single game. 2 touchdowns in week 3. He is an integral wide receiver to a team that is going to be, throwing 4 touchdowns every game. It wouldn't shock me if Chris Hogan averages, 0.9 touchdowns per game the rest of the way. And I see him as a wide receiver 1. I mean, I would trust him over the vast majority of wide receivers right now. He's the clear, to me, 1A at least, or 1B on the Patriots offense. Yeah, sign me up. And if I can turn a big name who's underperforming into Chris Hogan, who has been performing but is not a big name, I would do it.
He is exactly what they hoped Brandon Lloyd was. The Patriots, he is exactly what they hoped that Brandon LaFell could be. And they found him in Chris Hogan. They finally got a wide receiver right over there. A couple names of guys who had great games that I just want to talk about because moving forward, Devin Funchess. Are we completely bought in at this point? As soon as Greg Olsen went down, you saw more targets funneling to Devin Funchess. He is performing.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting, high single-digit targets every game.
He out-targeted Kelvin Benjamin this week.
He's involved enough to where I think you can start him, and I don't expect him to continue catching a touchdown a game as he's been doing right now. But he's certainly a guy that, I mean, he's still available on a lot of waivers. Pick him up. Also, shout out, if we're throwing some names out, I don't trust him going forward, but Nelson Aguilar, that play, the one play where he had his big touchdown.
For him now.
Yeah, I mean, but that was just sick. He made the Arizona Cardinals defender look like a fool.
Yeah, it was an amazing catch and then an amazing juke. Tight ends, this is important. No, I'm not specifically talking about, really any fantasy players that you know, but you might know someone who lost Charles Clay and is devastated,
right?
And their team really needs a tight end replacement.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone like that.
No,
but we have a couple names. Ed Dixon. What?
Dude,
what?
175 yards.
Ed Dixon.
What? On only 5 targets.
Is this a Mercedes Lewis flash in the pan for Ed Dixon?
It is not.
What? No.
Yeah, it is. No, here's why it's not. Now, I'm not by any means saying that Ed Dixon, you could bank on him for 175 yards. But
I feel like you're telling me that's what I need to bank on.
What I am saying is that Mercedes Lewis is a guy where if you take that flyer, tight ends are so crappy this year. They're just – the whole position is a mess outside of pretty much Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, and Gronk if he's healthy. Ed Dixon, if you take that shot at him, I think you're going to end up with at least 5 points. Mercedes Lewis, I think you're going to end up with 0 to 1 points, except for maybe one more game this year. He'll get another touchdown. I think Ed Dixon, while Greg Olsen is gone and he's filling in that role, he is capable enough to where
62 yards the previous week against the Patriots,
which for a tight end is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I would take it.
I mean, even in a standard league, 6.2 points for a tight end this year, it's okay. So I don't think he's a complete mirage, but obviously you don't usually take 5 targets at the tight end position for 175 yards.
All right, so Ed Dixon, or this character, George Kittle, who has flashed a couple times, came through big time this past week, 7 for 83 with a touchdown, 9 targets for Mr. Kittle.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those
Kittles and bits.
matchup directing things. So, for instance, this coming week, Ed Dixon plays Philly, and George Kittle is at Washington. I don't really love either matchup because Washington, it's in Washington. I think I might lean Kittle there.
All right, there's a tight end catching touchdowns for the Detroit Lions.
Finally, Eric Ebron.
Oh, no. He's still dropping touchdowns.
Oh, my goodness, dude. This guy, if all he did, if all Eric Ebron did was just catch the easy ones that he's dropped this year, everyone would be like, oh, he's done it. He's leveled up.
He'd be a top 10 tight end.
He drops everything. I'm done. Eric Ebron.
No!
Yeah, no, done.
No!
Full breakup mode.
If I could find sad music on here, I would play it for you.
No, Eric Ebron, you're dead to me.
Oh, that's so sad.
Never coming back.
But Darren Fells, 2 receptions, 2 touchdowns. So
yeah, you can't bank on him. But
Cameron Brate remains great.
Yeah.
He's a great pickup if he's still available on your waiver wire. Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, they're great. ASJ. It took a little bit for Austin Seferian-Jenkins, tight end for the New York Jets, to come through.
Some of our starts of the week here with Austin Seferian-Jenkins and Hunter Henry.
And Goose.
They both came through, both got in the end zone and had pretty darn good weeks. And the Goose nickname is sticking.
Oh, yeah, he's Goose.
He doesn't have to have a Goose. He's Goose now.
All right, we're going to talk some rising stars.
Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week.
Whoa, the Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week. This is where we like to highlight someone where we think not only did they have a solid week, but there's something special moving forward. Jason, give me your Raising Cane's Rising Star of the Week.
My Raising Cane's Rising Star of the Week is Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack.
The running back rookie for the Indianapolis Colts. Week 1, Marlon Mack came out, and when he touched the ball, I went, "Woo, who's that guy?" He looked great. He got 10 carries week 1, and he scored 2 touchdowns. Now, if you look at the box score, he only has 1 touchdown from week 1. That's because they didn't challenge the play where he got in and scored the touchdown like dummies. But he did get in. Now, this last week, he got injured. He got injured in week 2 and was gone for week 3 and week 4. I was curious if he was going to be back because this was a great matchup for him against San Francisco. He was back. He got 9 carries again for 91 yards and a touchdown. Looked as terrific as he had. And this is a guy that is getting it done on the ground, even though when he got drafted and came in, everyone was thinking he's just going to be a scat back because he's very talented in that role. So right now, he's behind Frank Gore. You can't really assume good value from Marlon Mack. I don't think you can start him, but I am looking to acquire him on the cheap. Most leagues, he'll probably be on the waiver wire. He'll be one of my favorite pickups because I think as the season progresses, when you get Andrew Luck back, Marlon Mack looks to be the future back here for the Indianapolis Colts to me. And he has shown me enough to where I go, maybe he takes over this year. Maybe he actually usurps Frank Gore because Frank Gore's 34 years old, and, I mean, can he keep going for this whole season? We don't know, but Marlon Mack, he's rising in my heart and in my mind.
Marlon Mack, when I see him standing pre-snap, everyone is lined up. I just imagine the RPMs of an engine. You know, when someone's indicating they're about to race, and you're the vroom,
right?
Because he's able to just peel out. I mean, metrically speaking, he's not the fastest guy, but then when you watch him running, I mean, he is
some guys, you know, when they get pads on, they slow down and their numbers aren't as good.
Speed.
And so, yeah, the game speed matters.
My rising star of the week, I said last week I would be very aggressive with him on the waiver wire, despite all the weird news coming out of Green Bay about the running back position. Aaron Jones, 19 carries, 125 yards, and looked fantastic. Now, you had the problem with Aaron Jones last week was if you played him, congratulations. I mean, you got a fantastic week from Aaron Jones, but it was trepidatious to start him with Montgomery not being really ruled out until very late in the week. Jamal Williams went from a multi-week absence to, he's practicing in full. They didn't even use Jamal Williams.
Why would they?
It was all Aaron Jones, who looked fantastic. And the question is, moving forward, what is Aaron Jones? I believe that Aaron Jones has turned the Green Bay situation into far more of a timeshare. That doesn't mean Aaron Jones is coming in and getting 15 carries. I'm talking to the tune of 8 to 10 carries a week when Ty Montgomery is back. But we have, in this landscape of running backs, to have a guy with juice like Aaron Jones on a high-powered offense who's going to get 8 to 10 touches, you can't ignore that.
No, certainly not. And the question is, so what does that do to Ty Montgomery? Ty Montgomery's gone from he's been on the field for 90+% of snaps when he's out there and getting everything. You look at what happened with Todd Gurley this last week, where all of a sudden a few touches that he was getting all the third down work, all the passing work, and this last week it was like, oh, okay, Malcolm Brown is involved. Oh, Tavon Austin's getting a bunch of carries. Those things hurt Todd Gurley. So I don't know. I think when Ty Montgomery gets back, he'll still be the definite starter.
Agreed. He'll
get the bulk of the workload, but he drops a peg because of what Aaron Jones has done.
And I know that Jamal Williams beat out Aaron Jones in camp, and throughout these first few weeks they've said Jamal Williams is the guy. I would find it shocking if the coaching staff doesn't review the tape and go, okay, Aaron Jones, you're the second string running back now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fathom that.
So Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones, those were the Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week. Remember, game day tastes better with Raising Cane's tailgates full of fresh 24-hour marinated hand-battered chicken fingers and fresh brewed sweet tea. Visit RaisingCanes.com to find your nearest location.
You know I'm all about that sweet tea life.
Jason and I enjoyed some Raising Canes.
We sure did.
While watching the football games yesterday. All right, enough of this positivity.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
This is my time for crow.
Jason had alluded that,
man,
that a storm of diarrhea was approaching.
Oh, it's upon me. It's upon me. My pants are here because of Ben Roethlisberger.
What
I am
happened?
So thankful for you two gentlemen. Look, we don't always get everything right. No one ever will. There were enough things that I looked at from metrics and from the schedule and the way the first few weeks had lined up to make me believe that Ben Roethlisberger was going to be an okay start this week. I really did believe that, and I am so thankful that you and Andy just did not buy in. You're like, no, I disagree wholeheartedly.
Well,
because
if you needed 3 points from your quarterback, then Big Ben came through.
Did he do that? He got 3 points?
I think
Look,
he got
that's
like
impressive.
2.
That's impressive because he threw 5 interceptions.
He still had over 300 yards, though.
Oh, man. It was a nightmare, and look, I don't usually apologize. But
it's too late, Jason.
Big Ben. Oh.
I think he needs an apology.
I need an apology from Big Ben.
All right, so moving forward, let's talk Big Ben for just a little bit. He's been playing pretty poorly. I mean, this was
his press conference. He was
we
questioning
crescendoed
if he still had it.
That's what I mean. When a quarterback in the NFL is all of a sudden having this inner monologue,
Jake Delhomme
of oh crap, have I lost it?
Matt Schaub.
Because when it goes away,
when you're mentally done, you're done.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
And we had already had this weird. Well, it seemed weird at the time, but the offseason of Big Ben saying, well, maybe I'll retire.
Yeah. It's not over for Big Ben yet. I mean, I'm certainly not going to prop him up again and make him more than he is. Like you said, he did throw for over 300 yards. It was the first game of the season where he didn't have a touchdown. Some of the interceptions were most definitely his fault. I would say the majority of them, but not all of them. And credit needs to be given to Jacksonville.
Yes,
the Jaguars were amazing. I mean, their defense. Listen to what they've given up to the quarterback position in fantasy: 8 points in week 1, 17 in week 2, 6 points in week 3, 5.3 points in week 4, and now they gave Big Ben, whatever he got, 3 points or so.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you can beat them on the ground. Like I said, why are you not giving Le'Veon the ball more? Jared Goff came back to earth. Deshaun Kaiser lost his job halfway through the game. So that's the situation to monitor if you were counting on Deshaun Kaiser. Who knows if he'll be the starting quarterback?
If you're in some kind of league, let's say you've got deep benches, 2-quarterback dynasty, got to be looking at Chris Hogan.
I say Kevin Hogan.
Or Kevin Hogan.
So, but Hogan or Kessler?
Hogan.
Hogan?
It's got to be Hogan. I mean, Kessler is. I mean, I look. If I was the Browns, I think Kessler's actually a decent quarterback, and you had something going there. I would have gone that way, but that doesn't seem at all the direction that the Browns are going. Hogan, I think, would be the guy.
Joe Flacco and Jay Cutler continued their struggles. Now for the main event.
Oh, yes.
I don't. Why are we celebrating in this man's bad game?
Let me tell you why we're celebrating. Because and this man's Todd Gurley.
Todd Gurley, running back, Los Angeles Rams.
He let some people down. It's the small victories, Mike, that you need, because there was some shade thrown on Todd Gurley by the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And, we said, look, this opening schedule is great, but it's going to come back down to earth for Todd Gurley. Last week, I was the only one. You abandoned me, and I said, look, I am still willing to trade Todd Gurley.
I'd abandoned
because his upcoming schedule is rough, and but only if you can get another great running back, upgrade your running back position, I would have been willing to do it. Now, he did have the almost touchdown that was turned into a fumble touchback on him. But overall, Todd Gurley, 14 carries for 43 yards, only 2 receptions for 7 yards, and a fumble, did not get it done, and it was against Seattle, which was a difficult matchup in their upcoming schedule.
But the thing about it is Seattle's defense has not been playing that well. They've been giving up points to running backs. So that's kind of why I was thinking, well, Gurley should be able to get it done. But now you have Tavon Austin coming back here, taking 6 touches. Moving forward, we've taken enough.
But my body.
We've taken enough of pushing Todd Gurley down. Moving forward, what do you see for Todd Gurley? Is this just a blip on the radar?
Yeah, it probably is more of a blip on the radar. I think they're going to continue to get him involved, and he will continue to be an RB1 in most weeks. It's just a matter of watching out for his schedule. Jacksonville, they can be run on, but they're still a great defense. That can turn the game script around to where it becomes difficult to run at all.
Sure.
Arizona, right now they just look like a complete dumpster fire, but they, in theory, have a good defense.
And it's a division matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hold on to Todd Gurley and you play him unless you can upgrade him to another running back.
Carlos Hyde had a stinker of a game. He came in, he was dealing with the minor hip issue, but only got 8 carries, 11 yards. Matt Breida
out-touched him.
He looked better. According to Kyle Shanahan, it was the hot hand situation, nothing about the injury.
Shenanigans.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Shanahanigans.
No, I don't buy that. I don't buy that it had nothing to do with the injury. Hyde was out for a majority of the week in practice. He has an injury that I'm sure he doesn't want to get re-aggravated. And when you come out and say no, it wasn't about the injury, well, there's motive for that, right? I mean, I'm telling the league, no, he's not even injured. I'm not worried about that. You don't need to target,
right.
You don't need to hurt my guy. I mean, you do that with injuries like hips and ribs and things like that you don't want your player to take a beating
sure.
on.
Plow.
Ooh.
Oof. Someone found a cure for zombie.
What
Plow.
happened?
He got a little bit banged up, but it was just a really bad game overall. Mike Gillislee did not come through for fantasy. He was 12 for 52. He looks good, but here's the problem for Mike Gillislee. Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis looks fantastic. He's getting on the field more than I anticipated. So it's where it looked like it was going to be James White, Mike Gillislee. That's it. Now Dion Lewis has thrown himself into the mix, and Chris Hogan keeps catching all these touchdowns.
And you've got Rex Burkhead, who I expect to be back this coming week. So that's another running back in the mix. Now, whether or not he takes most of that work away from Dion Lewis, I would say this. Mike Gillislee, a lot of questions. What do we do with him?
Yeah.
I'm definitely keeping him. He's also a trade target for me because he passes the eye test. He's still on a high-powered offense, and he will, over the course of the season, get a lot of touchdowns.
Amir Abdullah had a down game, but Jason had already said he would target him.
Yeah, he's just
gets the Saints next week.
He's getting a lot of use. They are clearly wanting to get him the ball. That was a tough matchup against Carolina.
The running backs for the Titans were pretty bad.
You know who really deserves a pooper here is the running backs for the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh,
all of them.
Oh,
all
my
three
goodness.
Of them. That gives.
My goodness.
It's a 3 poops. It's.
Yeah, it's what do you do with that situation?
You avoid the situation.
Lacey 9 carries for 19, Rawls 8 for 20, so yards per carry slightly better for Thomas Rawls.
I don't want anything to do with this running game. Their offensive line can't get it done. This was as good a matchup. The LA Rams were the 31st against the run as far as giving up fantasy points to the position. They couldn't get it done through the air. They couldn't get it done on the ground in a great matchup. I don't think either of them have it, and they don't have enough to overcome this horrific offensive line. So if you've got a terrible, awful offensive line and multiple guys that you're never sure who's going to get the ball, I don't want anything to do with it. I am happy to cut them.
Yes.
I'm going to try to package trade them, but I don't know that anybody wants to take them on. And I feel like they're going to take up a roster spot where I'm not sure if one of them goes down that the other would even be valuable behind this line.
I completely agree. Chris Johnson remains terrible, but I want to point out a stat that was brought to light by our own Kyle Borgioni.
Didn't nail that one. Borgioni.
Sorry, Kyle. But over the last 3 weeks, only Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, and A.J. Green have more targets than Andre Ellington. His role is secure. Chris Johnson is washed. The team needs Andre Ellington right now. If he is, for whatever reason, you didn't pick him up last week, you have to grab Andre Ellington. Moving to the wide receivers, Mari Cooper. My hands are in the air. You can't see me on the podcast. You can see me on the YouTube, but I don't know what to do.
Let's be honest. You should be on the YouTube already.
I don't know what to do with Mari Cooper. Alshon, it was a Patrick Peterson effect. Are there any of these wide receivers, Doug Baldwin, Mike Evans, Golden Tate, Randall Cobb, do you have any kind of overarching concern with them moving forward, just a down week?
Literally none of those guys am I overly concerned with. The biggest concern would be Cooper. I mean, he's put 3 weeks up. His last 3 weeks, he has a grand total of, 4 receptions for, teens yards. I mean, he's been horrifically bad. But, again, that was against, some of the best corners and without his quarterback.
So you're standing staunch on this. You would go buy Amari Cooper.
I would buy Amari Cooper for pennies, and I would keep him on my bench. That's what I would do. Because the Amari Cooper owner is wanting to cut him, and I don't blame them. But he is still a super talented wide receiver. You can't just dismiss the first 2 years of his career where he did something that
really 1.5 years though. The second half of last year was bad.
That's fine. Take the first year and a half of his career where even with a bad second half of his sophomore year, he still, over those first 2 years, is up near the best all time for his age and coming into the league. So you he was drafted like that. He was that in college. He's in a slump. Do you think Amari Cooper has a bad career? Do you think from here on out, Amari Cooper is no?
But what is Amari Cooper?
I think Amari Cooper.
Because people thought they were getting Julio Jones. They're getting Antonio Brown from Amari Cooper. That type of production.
I see Amari Cooper as coming into this season kind of what I thought Hopkins would be, which would be that kind of wide receiver 2, where there's reason to worry, but the talent is still there. Those guys have basically flip-flopped now. Hopkins looks like an absolute 1, and Cooper is like a 6.
To the tight end position, guys that let you down, Delaney Walker. I mean, it was just a rough game overall for the Titans offense, but Matt Castle will do that to you. And then Evan Ingram.
Oh man,
what happened?
That was
every wide receiver on your team goes down, and somehow Evan Ingram has 0 catches.
That was the weirdest of all of these poopers. That one made the least sense. Everything lined up. His matchup against tight end was great. His targets on the season had been great. The other wide receivers go down. He was so important, and it just disappears. What?
I don't know. That's one of those. I'm excited to go back and watch the tape and try and figure out what happened. What happened? If you had Charles Clay and the Evan Ingram over there wants to rage drop, I'd gladly trade for Ingram.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they have to use him. We have another very necessary tight end.
They had to use him that game. They didn't.
Yeah, they'll figure some things out.
Yeah, I want to watch the film to see, like, was he running routes just not targeted? Were they bringing him in to block? Yeah.
If they're bringing him in to block,
well, that's a failure already because he can't.
They've made terrible mistakes. Just a Monday night game update. We expect Sammy Biscuits back.
Hey, I'm really excited for that. That should be good news for Adam Thielen, for Stefan Diggs,
for Kyle Rudolph. Love Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
I know someone who's very excited about this game.
Oh, of course you are. Good luck to your Bears.
The debut of Mitchell Trubisky. We'll see.
What do you think Mitchell Trubisky does tonight?
Disappoints people.
Well, what do you think people's expectations are?
Well, Andy thinks that the Bears are going to win the game. Yes, he guaranteed. We have a water bet of the Vikings versus the Bears. And I don't know if he made that bet expecting Case Keenum to be the starter. I made the bet saying I don't care who the starter is for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think that the Bears are going to win. I know they're at home. We'll see. I mean, people are very, very excited to see what this rookie can do. The other, Deshaun Watson's been pretty solid. It's been a pretty good year overall for rookies.
The two things I'm going to be looking for tonight with Trubisky is how much he's targeting Tariq Cohen and Zach Miller.
Zach Miller's the big one for me with the tight ends being so terrible this year. Can Zach Miller re-emerge? Because last year, to start the year, he was a go-to target, and he was I believe a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, he was.
He was getting it done. So thank you, Foot Clan. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for bearing with us as we'll
have waivers tomorrow. So make sure you check in tomorrow. We'll get a little nuts with the waivers.
And check out draft.com/ballers. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.